Joe Rogan has made a major announcement, and it turns out it might have something to do with why the new media is destroying the legacies. Today, we'll tell you why it is that the celebs and all their friends destroyed your favorite stories, your franchises, your mythos, and your heroes, and why the new media, including Joe, just might be taking it back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the channel that continues to change Hollyweird. One story at a time, one video at a time, and every time only because you came by. As we dive in, click the like button, drop a comment down below, let us know your thoughts, and if you see the hype button, the time is always ripe to hit the hype. All right, let's go here, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a story out of the Joe Rogan experience, and this man has had an experience apparently. Out of the post-millennial, we're going to go back in time into the time machine for just a minute. Joe Rogan says he enjoys attending church, fascinated with the life of Jesus Christ. And you can see that this came out last year in October of 2025. Now, I think I've got this timeline right, that Joe Rogan had Wes Huff. I think Wes Huff is his name, the guy who's the apologist on, the Christian apologist and theologian. And about that time, we started finding out that Joe Rogan was going to church. Let's see what he had to say back then real quick.
But I have started going to church every now and again.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I do.
I do too. It's a bunch of people that are going to try to make their lives better. They're trying to be a better person. And they're trying to, I mean, for me at least, the place that I go to, they read and analyze passages in the Bible. I'm really interested in what these people were trying to say.
And we'll stop there because, well, it turns out that journey has continued for Joe. And here's what we've got now from Colin Rugg. It says Michael Schellenberger asked Joe Rogan point blank if he is a Christian after Rogan said he's been going to church for the last few years. Let's see what Joe Rogan has to say. We're not going to play the full clip, but here's a little bit of it for you.
Crazy thing that Wes Huff told me was that the book of Isaiah that they found in the Dead Sea Scroll predates the oldest version of the book of Isaiah by more than 1,000 years.
Whoa.
When they found it, they found out that there was a book of Isaiah that is 1,000 years older than the one they thought was the oldest one, and it is verbatim.
And that's how this gets introed. But let's go to where Joe talks about whether or not he is somebody who is beyond just curious and now of the Christian faith.
My question with all this is always like, what were they trying to talk about? What were they trying to say? What was the original experience that someone documented in story? And then that story was relayed over and over and over again, generation after generation, until it's eventually written down, and then they study it and take it literally. And then also translating it from Aramaic, which is the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient Hebrew, all these different languages, to Latin and Greek and eventually English. But what's the original story?
And the question becomes, are you following the original story, not just are you interested in the original story? Now, we could talk about Christianity, and we could get into talking about what our own personal beliefs are. I think that one of the places I'd like to go with this, though, and that's fine if we do so, but I think I'd like to talk about the new media, I think, is waking up a lot of people and rediscovering the Logos. The idea that there is an objective truth, that there is something beyond us and perhaps beyond the cosmos itself, and that there's a reality and that your life actually matters. And I think that is the antidote to what we have seen in the legacy media as well as in the far left, where they don't believe in anything other than power and narrative. Commonly, I really find this important. You know, we've got people like, we haven't heard from Dr. Jordan B. Peterson in a long time. He's been ill. We're now getting Joe Rogan moving in this direction. Wes Huff is doing a fantastic job, I think, of explaining a lot of this stuff to people who have been curious about it and want to know what is at the heart of it. But I think at the heart of the new media versus the legacy media is actually the heart of what it means to be part of the West and what caused the West to be the West and not like the rest of the world. So, Congressman Lee, what are your thoughts on this and the rediscovery of these values that separated the world for so long by the new media and people like Joe Rogan?
Yeah, I think this is great because even a few weeks ago, you had Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, saying that I agree with the teachings of Jesus Christ. And there's a huge realignment and a huge resurgence of people coming back to the faith, realizing that, yes, you didn't have to be a Christian to be an American. You didn't have to be Christian to be part of the West, but Christianity was the foundation of the West. Christendom and Western civilization have been synonymous for the past nearly 2,000 years. If you think about the greatest sculptures and the pieces of art and literature and music, even the greatest scientists for the past 500 years, most of them are Christian as well. And so you think about all these advancements, just wherever Christianity was spread, human flourishing followed. And we had that anchor in Christianity for so long in the West. And in the past 40 to 50 years, as our academic institutions, as our political institutions and Hollywood and all these very powerful cultural and political institutions started to move away from Christ and start to insert other ideologies and replace it with other ideologies, people are becoming increasingly disenfranchised. Everyone's saying, wait, I was promised with new atheism and with a secularization of all our institutions and the public sphere that things will get better for all of us. You know, pluralism, secular pluralism, this is all great. And then now we have professors at top universities telling you straight to your face that men can get pregnant. And we've lost our minds, and people realize, wait, we do need a foundation. And in John 1, it says that the Word was God, the Word was with God, and Jesus is the divine logos and the originator of what we truly understand to be reality, and the foundation of moral truth is found in Christ. And it has always been that way for the past 2,000 years in the West. And as we moved away from it, things have gotten increasingly disordered, chaotic, confusing, and a lot of people realize, wait, actually, it's not just that Christianity provides a good moral framework by which we can navigate and understand the world, but wait, if wherever Christianity went, flourishing happened, freedom proliferated, wait, then maybe this is truly the truth, and the God of the Bible is real.
So when we talk about the logos, when we talk about the idea of Christ being the manifestation or being the actual foundation of reality itself, that's the idea that's presented there. It's a huge idea. One of the things that changes the West, I think, is the idea that there are two components to reality. And one is the idea that there's an objective reality world out there that is set by something beyond the cosmos, set by the divine. But also there's the aspect of love in this. And that's not to say that if you look back in the history of the West, that everywhere that Christianity was, that everything was perfect. There's been lots of pain and suffering and torture and maliciousness done by people who say that profess to be following Christ's teachings, but you can't really tell that they are. But what it seems to me to be is that the more authentic you are to those teachings, the more civilizations just seems to lock into place into a better, as you said, a flourishing, because it does seem to me, it's absolutely true that once you recognize that reality is a factual, objective thing, and at the same time that love has to be a full component of that, and you say, well, what is love? And it's like, well, you know, the embracing of the values of the divine, as well as the love of your brother, your sister, that you would not do harm to them, that you would care about them at the same level. It's such a resolution to all of the hatred and evil that we see around us in the world, and that seems to be at the crux of the battle. Let's go back to Joe Rogan for just a minute. I want to get one more clip from him and then get the rest of the panel's thoughts on this, because again, I really do view the legacy media versus the new media as it's an axiomatic difference in both of these sides. The legacy media and the dinosaurs, I think that what they're calling for is for throwing away objective reality and following to their whims of whatever they say should be, even if it isn't what is. And then you've got that versus the new media and what's come out of it, where we're saying, no, we're going back to the idea that you can merit these out. You can test these ideas out. And well, that's the side of Christianity and maybe science too. Who knows? But here's what Joe Rogan has to say. We'll unmute. That might matter.
Your brother is, and your neighbor as if they're you. Like it's a beautiful way to live life.
Are you Christian?
Well, I go to church, and I have been for quite a while.
Okay, so
I've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years.
But that's not really an answer to the question.
Well, because I don't know. I think it's very interesting, and I do believe that if you follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, you will live a better life. I really do believe that. And one of the things I talk about is like the people that I go to church with are the most polite people I've ever met in my life.
That has to be the most Joe Rogan quote in the history of Joe Rogan quotes.
Truly.
It really is. The people I go to church with, and I believe in the teachings of the most effing nice people I've ever met. As he takes another hit on some. Go for it, Derek.
He's right. Like, I think the fall of Western culture and civilization really began when, church started to become less important to people in their daily lives. And once we return to and again, I'm not trying to preach, I'm not saying that you got to believe in one religion or another, but I do believe that there is, something deep within us that pulls us towards something of the divine. And when you stray away from that, you get away from that, that's when things start to crumble around your lives. And that's when you start to go through a lot of hardship in your own. Everybody's got to find their own way and own path. So I won't stay too long on this, but I do believe that. I believe that this country got away from its roots, which was, how did we get here? Okay. The Pilgrims were fleeing from England because of religious persecution. That's where this country started. So the foundations of this culture and this country are deeply rooted in our own religious beliefs and what we believe about the divine and how we believe we should worship. And so I do believe that the closer we get to that, the better we are. The further away we get from that, the worse we are, just as simple as that.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. And as we look at the world and how it's all working, there was that push about the atheism with the Four Horsemen of atheism, and you had Chris Hitchens, and you had Sam Harris, for example. Sam Harris went crazy, right? That's the problem with this whole thing, is that Sam Harris taught that atheism and seeking out the well-being of others, that was sufficient. And then the man went crazy and he got TDS and suddenly stopped being logical all over again. And you're like, okay, well, something is unmoored. And the other thing I think about, Lauren, is, when we're teaching these stories out of, whether it's the little red hen or whether it's, the story of Goldilocks, or you can go up, right? So you start off with the very basics, and there's an ethos that's built into those stories. And then you climb that up and you keep going up and up and up, and you get into the franchises and the things that matter, and what is it? Why did we watch Star Wars? Why do we care about Luke Skywalker? And what's buried in that's teaching us something? And I think about, when you have a kid, when you have a child, it's, you want the reality to be that there's a factual universe that your child can operate in, but also that there's a divine love, because you have a love, and maybe it's a reflection of the divine love, but you have a love. If you're any kind of person, you have a love for your child. And that seems to also be transformative. And I think that we've gotten away from that. I think we've gotten away from looking out at every single person and saying that they have a divine worth. And I think that if you walk through this world without viewing everybody as a divine worth, and that has to come from something, I think your stories fall apart. I think all of entertainment starts to fall apart the minute that you start departing from what made the West special. What do you think about that, Lauren?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, Western civilization, I think what made it unique in a lot of ways was the idea that the universe exists and can be understandable. And so the idea was that you're constantly going to be seeking out and trying to understand what the truth of that universe is. And that does require some type of objective foundation. But it also requires a kind of faith that there is things about the universe that we can observe and test and understand to try and come to an understanding of what that truth is. Our background is also an oral tradition to start with. That was how we exchanged ideas between each other and how we formed communities and were able to work together. Was we found something in common with each other through working together and passing on the values that allowed us to survive and to build civilization so that we could be together in that way. A lot of what we've lost now is not knowing who your neighbor is. And there's lots of reasons why that may be. It may be that you're afraid of getting to know somebody who's different than you. It could be that you're a private person, a shy person. You don't necessarily want to get involved with other people. But when that happens, when you stop knowing who the people around you are, it becomes a lonely place. And I think when you stop becoming curious about what's out there in the world, when you stop asking questions, when you become certain about what things are, that's when trouble begins. That's why I think in many ways science has been subverted. So the scientific inquiry oftentimes began with the church.
Are you saying that you don't believe one man is, quote unquote, the science?
No, certainly not. And that's a big problem, is that scientific inquiry began with the church because there was an idea that the universe was made by God. We inhabit it. It is understandable if we seek and we try and understand it. When you start declaring that things are definitive and stop questioning whether there is more to know, that's where you start getting into some really dangerous areas. It's so many times in the past, things have been declared scientifically true because with the information we had at the time, that seemed to fit the model. And then later we find out something is different. That's why you always have to be questioning and seeking. And I think that's what's interesting about what Joe's doing here. He's questioning and he's seeking and he's asking questions. And that's interesting. And it brings people together. That's why people watch his show. They're also questioning, seeking, and trying to understand.
And I think too, there's a pendulum shift, right? Because people have been lied to, and they've been lied to so much. And to know that you've been lied to means that you have to accept there's an objective reality, and that what you've been told doesn't match up with that objective reality. And that's been the game plan of everybody who controls our media, both on the news provision side as well as the entertainment side. They took our mythos, they took our stories, and they threw them into the bin of history and said, we're going to change that, and we're going to make it all about power and oppression, and we're going to take it away from what, the hero's journey. And the Wizard, that's the other thing too. So when they did this, when they stepped it away from what has been the traditional values of it, they, the hero's journey got swapped out, where the character now starts off perfect, or at least you can't question their perfection, and then the world around them has to actually submit to the character. So instead of the character learning how to navigate the world and improve, the world realizes they were wrong all along, and that character was perfect from the beginning.
Well, it's the perfect problem we have now with modern media. You just summed it up. You're perfect just the way you are, and nothing about you needs to change. And Pro, I really like the
It's a very anti-Christian message there, Fake Wizard. That is a very anti-Jesus message to say everybody's perfect. You're exactly right.
Well, well, there it is. But I really love the correlation that you made, that there is this resurgence in faith and the connection to the failure of the modern media, let's say. But I want to take a second and look at Kongman and I. We're about the same age. So we grew up in the 90s.
Now, how do you know that exactly? Did you research Kongman Lee while we were talking?
I made sure I was queuing up for this one, Pro. I was ready to go. I looked it up.
Oh, boy.
All right, I'm pretty sure if I'm wrong, maybe, I am 80,000 years old.
He's been on Grokkapedia again. I told him to stay off Grokkapedia during the show. I can't stop him.
But we grew up in the same time, and we were told one way of life, and that was you're going to do really good in school. You're going to go and get an education. You're going to pay all this money to get a degree. And then as soon as you're done, you're going to have a cushy job. Your life is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. You're going to inherit the world, right? And so now fast forward. So now you have all these 30 and 40-year-olds. You have the millennials who went through the system. They're in debt, or maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But the world that they grew up promised that they were going to inherit not only doesn't exist, it was stolen from them. Right. And so that's why we're seeing such a resurgence in people looking around now, waking up in their 30s and 40s and saying, well, wait a minute, something is wrong. And they're turning around and, hey now. Hey now. but these young people are realizing that something is wrong, and they're starting to ask questions, and that's leading them down a path to say, hey, what the media tells me I can't rely upon, what the entertainment companies tell me I can't rely upon anymore. All of my heroes have been brutally murdered, massacred, humiliated, and not for the growth of anything else, just because they don't like me and they don't like you.
And more importantly, Wizard, more importantly, not just humiliated, deconstructed and inverted.
That's right. It's the absolute worst form of torture, that every single thing you might have modeled your life around was destroyed in front of you. And so where does that lead them after that? It leads them to the only thing that's left, which is hope. And the only place you're going to find that in its purest form is where we're seeing it with Joe Rogan, where it's unquestioning.
Well said.
Here's another thing about this, and I want to come back to Congressman Lee and give you a chance to, because this is an area of expertise for you, and so I would love to hear your thoughts on it. One of the issues with storytelling and with what we've seen happen across our media is that when you strip away values and you make values be debatable, even if they exist, or everybody gets to set their own values, and there is no actual order to the universe in terms of morality. One of the things that happens is that you no longer have archetypal heroes.
Yeah.
And so you might think of Christ as being, because people talk about, the ultimate myth, right? And that's not to say that Christ is a myth. That's to say that people will talk about the monomyth and how that every hero, the closer you get to the archetypal story of Christ, that the closer you're getting to a more heroic presentation, right? Because the archetypal idea is that you have someone who is divine and perfect and also historical, who then suffers the worst possible punishments, but takes that on voluntarily in order to bring about the greatest good possible. Oh, and also to provide that greatest good voluntarily to others that they can choose to partake in it. Okay, so that's, you've taken that to its farthest archetypal levels it can go. Like there's nowhere else you've got the greatest good suffering the greatest injustice in order to bring about the greatest gift to others possible. Like, how do you go any farther? Okay, once you strip out that matters, then every other hero that you have in your storytelling, even if it's a person who's not a Christian, even if it's a person who doesn't believe in God, whatever, we were all playing by this idea that you could rank order morality and that you could have something to aspire to. Once you have nothing to aspire to, once you take out the value of the West, the idea of the logos, then all your heroes start to fall apart. What do you think about it?
Yeah, 100%. And this is something that people need to understand too, that the leftist project in this country and in the West, broadly speaking, is this push for egalitarianism, is the flattening of all differences and saying that everything is fine. You do you, I'll do me. We're all the same. And yes, we're all equal before the Lord, but there is a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of good. There's a hierarchy of talent. There's a hierarchy of beauty. There are certain things that are more beautiful, more desirable, and something that should be, a goal for all of us and an ambition for all of us, because it is better of sorts than the current state that we're in. And so once you start stripping that meaning from people, saying that, this generation was the generation that grew up with participation trophies that no matter what you did, you were acknowledged for it. But that's just not the way that we are wired in order to not only achieve greatness, but also have meaning in our lives. Because if we are constantly told you are perfect just the way that you are and there's nothing wrong with you, then there's nothing to life. And, the word of God talks about suffering, and suffering producing character, and character producing hope, and perseverance, character, and the character hope. And that's what we should aspire for, that it is through our suffering. In 1 Peter, it says that it is through the trial and tribulations that our faith becomes purified as gold. And that's what we need. We need suffering. And Jesus is the archetype of the one who suffered. He suffered. He was still God in flesh, yet he saw it appropriate to suffer even until the point of death on a cross to redeem humanity. And it is through our suffering. You think about even the typical hero's journey. It is through the suffering. It's through the obstacles and the trials and the tribulations and the hardships that someone becomes refined, stronger, and truly a better character. And that is truly how God brings us all to become more virtuous people. And if you think about a lot of the people in our lives, and just the people on the internet too, who, yes, they have great brokenness, but they have been told in that brokenness that there's nothing wrong with you, you're perfect, and everything that you say is valid, and your truth is valid no matter what. So we've simultaneously cultivated the most narcissistic yet broken generation in all of human history by feeding them this lie that they are perfect and they're fine just the way that they are, but they're not.
It's one of the most vicious things a person can say, Congressman Lee, because what you do, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want to miss this point that I think you and I are both approximating. When you tell somebody, especially a young person, that they're perfect just the way they are, you just stole their adventure from them.
Yes.
And that person, if they have any sense in their head, they will look in the mirror and say, oh my, if I'm perfect just the way I am, then there's no perfection because I'm a mess. And how depressed must that person be to know I'm perfect, there's nowhere to go, and I am this way, full of faults and flaws, and I wanted to aspire to be more. I wanted to aim higher. And there is something to aim higher to. And I think that's what Joe Rogan is looking for. I think that's what the world is looking for. And I think that's why the new media has risen and defeated the legacies in rapid ascension.
Yep. And there's always something to better yourself on, right? And the Christian faith isn't per se about, just self-improvement. It's about, and just like behavioral changes, but it's really about transformation, but transformation into the likeness of God. And we become more like Christ. And that's a step-by-step journey that really is a journey. It's an adventure. And yeah, it may not look like Frodo and, Samwise Gamgee going and,
or it might.
But it could. And but it's even in the little things. It's in the little things, in the way that we interact with our communities, with our neighbors, with our family, and the way that we build each other. I love my family, but I got into a huge fight with them recently. And through that, I was becoming a better man. They were becoming a better family member to me. And we were learning, we were growing. We got closer because of that. And it's these small, even these small moments of contention and suffering and hardship, and even especially moments where we're uncomfortable, that's what makes us more virtuous and makes us better people. And that's what we need. And we live in a society where we have idolized comfort and convenience, and that is the primary thing that we aspire to, instead of virtue and goodness. And so, like we've all said in this panel, that truly once we start getting away from the law of God and the foundations of Christianity in the West, people lose their way and they lose their meaning.
That's right. I don't want to stop anybody from adding anything else. If you have something to say, I'll wrap up my part of this by if anybody's out there who has a doubt, okay, and well, you should. Everybody's got doubts, right? I would recommend to you that the more that you treat someone like they matter, okay? And remember, if atheism is true, or if the whole universe is just a cosmic, series of math and a mistake maybe, then this shouldn't be true. But if you treat people like they really matter, the more you treat them like they matter, the more they will appreciate you, want to be around you, the more successful you will be in life, the better you will feel in your life, the more you treat people as if they have divine worth. And the way that I tend to judge things in terms of whether or not they have a veracity is, does it functionally work when you do it, right? And it turns out that if you treat people as if they have divine worth, things start to lay themselves out the right way in front of you in your path in life. And that's something to think about. Panel, any other final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I think we covered quite a bit. And this was a good discussion. I've been itching to have a discussion like this, between different. I've been itching for a video like this. So
you just want to get in a Samwise reference. You just want a Samwise reference. I know what you're up to.
But this is like it's not even it's the most important talking point. Like, why is there such an interest now? And why is there we look around and people are demoralized and they don't know what to do. And the ones that are asking the questions of, well, what has gone wrong and where can I find hope? They start to find it, and they usually all end in one spot, which is a very good thing. But we need to be having more conversations similar to this in different ways, because it's not just entertainment. It's not just video games or Hollywood. It's the news too, and it's a political thing. It is, but it isn't a political thing. These are this is the crux of, I think, humanity. And I think we're really fighting for the soul of humanity at this point now. We could talk about Spider-Man and Disney all the live long day, but none of that really matters. That's what they were using to demoralize you. And unfortunately, they're winning that fight.
At the time, Wizard, and this is why I stepped out of my career and did this YouTube thing. And I don't think the audience has ever heard that before. The reason I stepped out of what I was doing, and I liked it and I was successful, but the reason I stepped out of doing what I was doing and I said I'm going to do this, is because we can't miss as AI is coming online and we're teaching this thing that's going to be so powerful. We can't lose to woke. We can't lose to the people who believe in man-made power over truth with a capital T. This is not the time. We must win, and we must take our heroes back. We must take our stories back, because embedded in them are the values that made us what we have been for centuries. Pulling Hollyweird to the sensible center, the mainstream middle where money is made, is not easy, but folks, you make it easy to make videos each and every day, because sharing time with you is a great honor, and we never take it lightly. An attitude of gratitude every single time we have the chance to shine with you. Until the next time, we only ask that you click that like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, don't worry about paying any kind of tuition for this free class and how entertainment works. You are on scholarship. Highest IQ on the internet, that's you for sure. Until the next time we have the opportunity to spend time together, folks, we just ask that you keep learning, keep growing, and as ever, keep having fun.